Put all this
That's
stuff.
really cool.
No, I'm not an actor. I'm not a professional speaker or motivator or anything like that. I'm just an old mountain man. If anything, I'm a talker, a storyteller maybe, if you can believe that. And I do have to, right up front, have to apologize to everybody. I know when I come out of the mountains and I took my bath in the Missouri River, I had no idea it was going to end up that muddy. So for those folks that was going to go fishing on the Missouri River and it's so doggone muddy, I apologize to you. But I'm clean and I don't smell right. Okay, I am Mountain Man Three Toes. I was born with a Christian named Michael Mansell. I was born in 1806. And anybody that's been around as long as I have knows at that time period, most youngins went to the mountains when they was 18, 19 years old. I was 19 years old when I went to the mountains. So I got in the middle of the mountains, right in the middle of the fur trade. Now, I am a free trapper. I did not trap for any of the big brigades, the Hudson Bay Company, or the American Fur Company with Fitzpatrick. I didn't trap with them. I like to roam. I'm fiddle-footed. In other words, when I go over one hill, I just got to see what's over the next hill. So I don't stay in one spot. I'm always wandering. But at the same time, the number one job of a mountain man was what? Anybody can tell me? What do you think the number one job of a mountain man was?
Surviving.
Very good, surviving. That was the answer I'm looking for. Trapping beavers was only secondary. Surviving. We had to fight the bears, the bees, the weather, the climate. Everything was against a mountain man. We had to survive in some of the worst elements possible. Survival. And if you had a good smoke pole, well, that was all part of it. But you know what helped a whole lot is when you find somebody that can go to the mountains with you, and such as Frank over here, Francis Powers, we call him Pilgrim. Make sure you run faster than they can. Because bears, you know, if you can run faster than that bear and you can run faster than the old boy you're with, guess what? The bear will get him. You'll survive till the next day. So you got to be a little bit faster than the ones you're with. So that helps out a little bit, right? Just be a good runner. But being a trapper, yes, we eat the beaver that we trap. And everybody can see this big beaver back here. This is a 72-pound beaver. It was trapped on the Missouri River. 72 pounds. Well, shoot 3 or 4 of them, I could make a real good coat. But most of the beavers that we trapped was 30 to 40 pounds. And we stretched them out in hoops, willow hoops, just like that one is there, just like it was done in the 1800s. Early 1800s, 1700s, all in that time period. They was stretched out on willow hoops or staked out on the grounds. Now, a lot of your native tribes, the Sioux, Cheyenne, they would drive posts in the ground and they would stretch them on stakes, same as they did their buffalo hides and their elk hides for their teepees and whatnot. But the animals were not wasted. The beavers was trapped, of course we trapped them for the hides. The rest of it got ate, or it made different tools along with the other animals, whether it be deer, the elk, or whatever. Every part of it was used if it could be used. How many has ever went fishing using a deer, a white-tailed deer? Nobody's went fishing using a white-tailed deer? Got one?
Deer tail.
Deer tail, yeah, tri-flies, okay, there you go. Fish hooks, made out of leg bones of a deer. For your smaller fish and for your big catfish. If you're fishing the Missouri River or Platte River, whatever, you just put a bunch of bait on there and drop it down in the water. Okay, your line. Okay, the bones of a deer make the hooks. Okay, can anybody tell me what the string might be made out of? Because we didn't have string. Had to make our string. It's also made out of deer. It's the tendons of the deer. Here's some fishing line right here, and there's nothing perfect about these. These are carved out just like they would have been done back in that time period. So you can pass these around. Okay. This is a piece of that tendon that's off the back strap of deer. This is where your back straps are. That's just a piece of tendon. Here's a piece that's pretty raw. That was just cleaned off and dried. You can pass that around. This is off of an elk leg, the front leg or rear leg of an elk, hamstring. Okay, pass that around. It's hammered out and it gets into fabric like this right here. And you can pass this around. But what they do, pass that around. You can have a piece of it if you want. Here, pass that around. That way everybody gets to see it. Here you go, pass that around. But you weave it together and you make your cordage. Well, guess what? You take 2 or 3 of these, you get the right length, and you braid them together. Guess what? You got your string for your bow. Or you got more fishing line, depends on how it comes out. So you're going to use every part of the animal, the critter you can, regardless of what type of animal it is. Of course, you're going to use some of them for decorations. Okay, antlers, leg bones, all can be made into knives or tools that we use. Antler tip, powder measure, holds 90 grains of powder just by taking the inside out, because the hard outside, you got a soft pith on the inside. You make knives, just a piece of steel, just like that knife right there, it's just an antler. So the antlers and bones is all used. You can take that bone right there, take a piece of obsidian or a piece of flint and make a saw, cut that half, cut a groove, and you fit a blade in there. And here you got another knife just by using, now this is glass, but other pieces, make a knife out of your flint, obsidian, and that's one thing about being a mountain man, because if you ever lose your knife, you lose your tools, you gotta be able to make your bows, your arrows, nap your own arrowheads, the whole 9 yards. But you can make your tools, you can survive. Because I remember, I told you the #1 rule is survival. So you have to learn all this, how to make your tools using the animals that you hunt for food and that you trap for the furs. Take some of the bones, take a couple pieces of sandstone. How many has been to Coquille Mounds on the Mississippi? Okay, they found a cache of arrow points that was made out of bones. A lot of them made out of flint, but a lot of them out of bones. These are copies or reproductions that I made out of bones. And some of them are little bitty ones, but they're made for taking game. It's all part of that, learning how to survive and how to make it. And of course, I researched these, in that time, anything that would fit on the end of an arrow to help take your game. It could be a thorn off a locust tree. Your flint, your steel, it could be a piece of metal, whatever the case might be. Now, I got a trivia question for you. When it comes to the arrows and hunting with your bows and everything, how many people know why, you find some arrowheads that are big and others a little bitty like this one right here?
Some are for bigger game, some are for smaller game.
Nope. Good answer. That's what most people think. The bigger arrowheads are for the bigger animals, but they're not. This right here, this arrowhead right here is a sample of what they use to take buffalo with. Right here. Because the buffalo hide is so thick, and it's got to be a good sharp arrowhead. It's got to penetrate. And they put in as many as possible into that animal to bring that animal down. Your bigger arrowheads, like I got some in the case down here, a lot of them was fastened on a piece of wood with an 8-inch handle or so, and it was gouging sticks or digging sticks. They would dig with them, or they would gouge, they would fight, whatever the case might be. They used them as knife blades a lot of times to skin out their animal. Okay, if you notice, and you can pass these around and look how the fletching are tied on, and how it's used to snoo, it's hide glue. These are made just like they was made back in that time, in the 1800s, and before that, so you can pass them around. This arrow, now if you notice that one there, because anytime the Indians could save an arrowhead and use that arrow over, they would pull them back out of the animal. This arrow right here is for fighting. And the reason I say that is, look at the notches on the end. It's made to go in, but if you tried to pull it out, it's going to stay inside you. And anytime you moved, it's going to cut. That's why you've seen some of read some of the stories and all where they had to push it on through. Well, there's one right there. It's made to take you out of battle. So there's that arrow, and it's made just the same way. Okay, if you notice how short these arrows are, there's a reason for that. For hunting arrows, and a lot of them use the longer arrows. These three arrows right here is actually made by an Indian. It's Cherokee Indian. His name's Red Buffalo, and he does sell these, or you trade for them, whatever the case might be. And I had a steel tip on one. The Indians, when they fought their battles, if they was on a horse, they were fighting other tribes, they were fighting the trappers or whatever the case might be, they used short arrows, because when they rode their horse, they'd go from side to side. If they used their longbow, it would hit the horse as you swap from side to side. They used little 3-foot bows, a little 36-inch bow. They could swing from side to side on that horse, and that's why they're smaller arrows. Their longer arrows with their big bows is when they're walking, taking game in the woods, hunting deer, elk, whatever the case might be. They use the bigger bows. So in all reality, most people don't realize they had 2 bows, one for hunting, one for fighting. And that's why some of the arrows are shorter.
Was there a preference for the kind of wood that they wanted to use for the bow?
A preference, yes. And believe it or not, the Osage orange was around long enough that they loved that wood, and they traded. There's a lot of trade routes that went through. Matter of fact, this area right here and up towards Princeton, Missouri, Kirksville area, there's a lot of trade routes that went through there, and that's what they looked for, was the Osage orange wood. But they made them out of locust. You could even use white oak. They use white oak, the limbs. Yeah. Most of your hardwoods, they was able to make a bow out of it, but they really loved Osage orange. That's one of the ones that they really liked. Sitka fir, they made some bows out of Sitka fir, depending on what part of the country you're in. Now, if you was up in like Alaska, they would use bone. And there was some tribes actually in the lower 48 that used bone antler and made their bows. So the tools of trade, besides our old smoke pole here that we use, and this is a 50 caliber flintlock, because that's what most of them was. Everybody thinks that, oh no, they had the percussion cap and all that at that time period. Yes, it was later on, towards the end of the fur trade, that they used a percussion cap. You know, there's a lot of myths about the mountain men. A lot of mountain people think that the mountain men had big Bowie knives. No, most mountain men carried knives like this right here, regular old hickory butcher knives or whatever. Now this is an actual Green River knife, made by Russell Knives, but this is a Green River knife. This is typical of most knives that mountain men carried. It's a combination skinning knife, cutting up your meat knife, or doing battle knife, whatever the case might be. Everybody thinks, oh, it had to be these big Bowie knives with the big old brass guard on it, the whole 9 yards. No, if they dig into their history, the Bowie knife did not come in effect until 1838, and it was made by a Louisiana blacksmith for Jim Bowie, which everybody knows Jim Bowie died at the Alamo. I wasn't there at that time. I was just a little teetotaler when, you know, the War of 1812 down in Louisiana. But a blacksmith designed the Bowie knife. for Jim Bowie. It didn't go into production until 1850s. That reminds me, talking about that knife right there, there's one time that I was out there with Pilgrim, and we went in this valley, and just looked just perfect for elk. So we're out riding out through there, and all of a sudden this grizzly bear jumps up, because that's one critter that the mountain men just hated running into, is big old grizzly bear. Well, I run up this one tree, because I knowed it was a big enough pine and had low enough limbs that I could get up it. And of course, Pilgrim, he runs the other way over towards the rock pile where he finds a hole over there. So he dives in the hole. So this bear's out there in the middle between us now. So every time I start to come down or whatever, nope, here comes the grizzly bear. Every time Frank tried to come out of his hole, he'd run back out, run back in, because the bear went after him. Finally, the bear got tired of the little game, and he finally left. So when we finally got back together, and I told Pilgrim, I says, why didn't you just stay in the hole in the ground? He says, I couldn't. There was a mountain lion in that hole. So that's one of them times you wish you had a faster horse. Right, Pilgrim?
That's right.
Other things we use, tools, blacksmiths will make tools for you. This is for my flintlock to hold the flint down on my hammer real good. You know, your powder flask, powder measures, depending on what type of rifle you. Another thing, you know, you got your turkeys, you know, your Merriam turkeys like that and over there and stuff like that, but anybody have any idea what you would use this for? Oh, man, you betcha. That's right, back scratcher. Use all parts of the animals. And folks, I got all these animal hides out here. Yes, a lot of them I've trapped, hunted, and such as that. But, you know, the main thing we got to realize is that these animals put on this earth for a purpose, and we don't go out there and just to be taking animals to use in these classes. Most of these furs and animals, it's either been hunted for food or been trapped for their hides or whatever, and you know, the skulls and everything, and I use it for teaching and learning experience for the youngins, because, and that's the point I want to make, you know, we're not out there just taking these animals out just to use them for displays and stuff like this. There's a purpose behind why I have these. I was telling you earlier how I teach hunter education classes. There's a program called YHEC, which is Youth Hunter Education Challenge. And that's how I got involved with having all these hides, and I've been doing it 23 years now, I guess, pretty close to it, with these hides. And it started out just collecting a few, helping a local group there around the Kansas City area. And it's expanded to where I go across the state now, different schools, and well, even Three Toes goes to different schools, fourth graders and all, and does this program. But it expanded out where they invited me to be the director for the wildlife ID when it comes to state contests for these youngins. And we've had upwards of, I think 240 is the most kids we've had at one time. Well, so that everybody would have a fair chance at this contest, because whoever wins at this contest or scores high enough, then they do the national contest, in which it's a real big honor for these kids when they make it to the nationals. And especially be able to win at that, because there's been a lot of them that we taught and met and mentored over the years that's went on to bigger things. Some of them even work for Bass Pros. They got their dream job of going out and hunting for the TV shows and stuff like that. But anyway, I told them I would be the director of that wildlife ID for this contest, but I would travel around to each one of these groups so everybody can see the whole thing, because nobody's left out when they get to contest. You know, they would see the same thing that this group over here seen, this group over here seen, this group seen. But from that, it's grown to where I got one of the largest collections in North America of North American animals and hides and skulls. I mean, sure, your university's got, and I won't go into that, but there are stories on how they hate me, especially University of Missouri. Because every time it gets wrote up in the paper or whatever, it's all about Mountain Man Three Toes and his hides and skulls. And as way as they put it, he makes no bones about his bones. And that's exactly right. And so they kind of get left out, so they get a little jealous. So So what you're all seeing here today is just an example of the stuff that's out there. And we take it to places, and a lot of this stuff, like the wolverine and the fisher and martin, people's never seen these critters. A ringtail cat, they've never seen these critters. Well, guess what? They're here for your enjoyment, to see them, to be able to feel them. What makes it all worthwhile is this spring, and like I said, me and Frank's been doing this for several years now, taking somebody that's blind, mid-40s, young woman that's been blind all of her life, never seen these animals. She's heard about them. Can you imagine just hearing about the animals but not knowing what they look like, what the fur feels like on them, what the antlers feels like, or whatever the case might be? And to actually get to feel them, to touch the skulls to that animal, touch the antlers to that animal, or the horns to that animal, whatever the case might be, and to see their face light up, because like the wolverine, you know, to be able, right there, it's under the beaver hide there, a wolverine hide. You hear stories about them, you know the Indians feared them and everything. That wolverine right there, for a blind person to actually feel the hair of a wolverine is just unreal. Because now they can picture in their mind this critter that everybody talks about. She can't never see, but she knows what it feels like now to touch that hair. Same with an elk, same with the ringtail cat, a skunk, whatever the case might be. She's had that opportunity. So that's what makes this all worthwhile, you know, when we do these. Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier, I'm not a professional at this, I'm not an actor. I enjoy what I do, and you know, teaching youngins, and that's what I'm going to get into now. I got other stuff up here that we use, just like these horns off the buffaloes. You know, got a little one down there, but these make your drinking glasses or whatever. If you look at the powder horn that Pilgrim's wearing there, that's buffalo. Carved out of one of these right here. Just like mine. Of course, mine's got the scrimshaw that I do on it. Learned how to do all that, scrimshaw and the whole 9 yards. But you make drinking glasses, different tools. How many has ever felt regular brain tanned buckskin? That's what us mountain men make our breeches and stuff out of. Pass this around, you can start over here. That is actually brain tanned, just like the mountain men, your Native Americans, your Indians did it. That is brain tanned. It's soft and supple. You just got to stretch it and work it and everything, but that is brain tanned. The brain tanning buckskins, reason so many items are in museums to this day is because they're brain tanned. When they are commercially tanned, like this chunk of hide right here, they discolor, they do not last that long. That brain tanned piece of hide right there will be around, you know, could be, if you kept it dry, didn't, you know, put it out there where it deteriorate, it could be museum stuff, you know, years from now, 200 years from now, because a brain tanned hide lasts a lot longer than what the commercially tanned does. Commercially tanning, they use zinc chromate. It's just like a lot of these hides. Now, some of these hides that I've tanned, some of them are brain tanned, but most of them, if they're commercially tanned, they're going to be zinc chromate tanning.
What do you mix with the brain?
What do you mix with the brain? A little bit of water.
Just water?
And heat it. Yeah, you make a paste and you rub it in and just keep working it and rubbing it in. You know, take a piece of wood, whatever, and just work it just back and forth, just work it in. Deer hide, you can just put in a pot. Throw your hide in there with the water and the brain and just water it all up, just work it and knead it in the whole 9 yards, and then you take it out and wring it out, and in the process of twisting and wringing it, forces it through the hide, into the hide, the porous fibers, and then you stretch it and just start working it, and as it dries while it's stretching on there and everything, and it comes out wherever it went, like that piece, that right there. Now then, if you notice, the edges will be a little bit harder in places. That's where it's been pulled or whatever. But that's just a chunk of hide right there that I use, and I use it for these purposes.
Does the hair come out then?
Yes, well, when you talk about the hair, you take, well, like this deer hide on the table right here, this piece right here, this hide here, this is brain tanned. It just, I haven't worked it enough to get it really limbered up like that buckskin. But when you scrape it, the hides, you're gonna scrape his hair off for buckskin. There's another membrane underneath that you're gonna scrape off with the hair. And it's gonna almost look the same on both sides. If you see buckskins, not to be picking on you, but your jacket right there, yours just a regular leather jacket, but you can kind of see like a film, a membrane. Elk skin, okay, but there's still, it's commercially, and I can tell it's commercially done because it's. Oh yeah, no, that's nice. But they got the smoothness on one side of it. True buckskin will not have that because they'll take that membrane off, so it's pure leather, both sides. And when they brain tan it, that goes all into the leather, and when it's going to be soft and supple like that right there. But it's just the zinc chromate tanning, I don't care for it. If you're going to do it right, use the brain tanning. It's a lot more work, but the rewards at the end will be well worth it. Yes, this is soft and supple, but it won't last near as long.
Where do they got the ideas for some of them things like brain?
Indians.
Where do you think? Just
The Indians. Trial and error. Indians did that. They had this down to an art form. And
would have thought about
is you know, I always tease my wife that, you know, about chewing the hides and softening them up for me. And I'm on my second set of teeth now because she's made me do all the work. 11 o'clock to noon, and then from noon, whatever, to 2 o'clock or whatever, they can still meander, you know, ask questions.
this is a great one.
Crap.